All right, this video is going to be about scatter plots, section 2.7. When we're talking about scatter plots, we're talking about a collection of data that is not connected in a straight line, or the points are not connected. So what you've seen before is you've seen a lot of things that are made into a line, and we say that this is all like data that you would collect in the real world. For example, the cost of producing iPhones. Well, there's a startup cost of like $5 million. And that's just for the equipment that they need in order to produce the iPhones. So that startup cost is there whether or not they sell any iPhones or not. They're going to have to pay $5 million for all of the equipment, all of the stuff that they need. Then every single iPhone that they make is going to cost them a certain amount of money. So we connect that in a straight line. However, if you're actually talking about what's going on here, you would have a series of points. It's going to cost this amount, and then when they make one, it's going to cost this amount. When they make two, it's going to cost this amount, 3, 4, etc., etc. So it's actually a lot of points. So in the real world, your data is usually actually a scatter plot. Scatter plots just mean that you're putting the points, and then we're going to try to figure out what we call linear regression tomorrow, but we're going to try to figure out the connection between the points. So if I say there's a connection between the amount of hours of sleep and test grades. And I'm noticing that's just off of the screen, barely, so I'm gonna fold this. So hours of sleep and test grades. So if this is my hours of sleep, and this is the grades, and we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we're gonna pretend that no one sleeps more than 8 hours. The grades are gonna go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and we're gonna stop at 80 because I ran out of space. Nah, just kidding. We'll fold this back. 90, 100. And so we say that one person took the test, they slept for 8 hours and they got a 100. Well, somebody else slept for 8 hours and they got a 70. Well, somebody else slept for 6 hours and they got a blah, blah, blah. So we're just putting the data in here as it shows up. So these are a bunch of different points that represent different people's amount of sleep and their test grade. Right now, there's no connection between these. But if I look at it, I can kind of tell that it's going up and to the right. And that's called the correlation. So we're going to look at 3 different types of correlation. Correlation on these, we want to see if the correlation is positive, negative, or none. So the one that I was just doing, if it looks like it's going up and to the right, we would say that it has a positive correlation. So that example that I just did would be a positive correlation. It doesn't have to be exactly on. It just needs to look pretty much like it's going up and to the right. Negative means that it's going down and to the right. So as if it were the slope, it's got a negative correlation, meaning it's pretty much a negative slope. And then we have none. None's going to look like a shotgun blast. So it's kind of all over the place. Maybe it doesn't even look like a line. Okay? So we got a positive correlation, a negative correlation, and no correlation. Now with positive and negative, we can have strong or weak. So we need to look at, is the correlation really tight or is it really far apart? I would say that both of these have a strong correlation. They're pretty close together. Now a weak correlation would just be more like spread out numbers. If this was it, it's kind of going up and to the right. Kind of. But the numbers are not, the dots are not real close together. So we would say that this is a weak correlation. There's not a lot of information that's packed in close together. like it is on this one. Okay? Now the trick on this is if I actually zoom this out, it's going to look a lot closer together. The closeness at which I look at it kind of affects whether or not it looks like a strong or a weak correlation. So what I mean by that is if I took my iPhone and I went like this and it zoomed in, all of a sudden these might look like they're pretty spread out as well. If I took my iPhone and I went like this and I zoomed out, well, that's the wrong way. Like, yeah, no, that's zoom out. If I zoomed out, it might look like these are a lot closer to the line. So strong and weak are a little bit tricky. When we get into class, we'll look at this a little bit more closely tomorrow with linear regression. We'll look more closely at what strong and weak really mean. For right now, I just want you to be able to graph the points. So graphing points are always X and Y. Graphing points and then telling me if it's a positive, a negative, or no correlation. If it's positive, tell me if it's strong or weak. If it's negative, tell me if it's strong or weak. Strong or weak doesn't mean if the line is going really steep or really flat. It means is the correlation, are the dots really close to the line? If we put a line in there, are the dots close to it or are they far away? So that's what we're looking at when we're looking at strong and weak. Don't think of it as this is a really strong correlation because it's got a really steep slope. That's not the case. This could still be a really weak correlation if the points are pretty far off of the line. So it's still positive, it's still going up, but it's pretty weak. Hopefully that makes sense. What I do want you to do is, using the points that I give you right here, just tell me if it has a strong or a weak correlation, okay? So we're gonna do temperature in El Paso and the temperature in Austin. And I just want you to use this one as your X and this one as your Y. So we're going to look at two temperatures, and yeah, they don't necessarily correlate with each other, but we'll see. So I want you to use your X is your temperature in El Paso and your Y is your temperature in Austin, and just make the scatter plot and then tell me if it has a positive, negative, or no correlation. If it's either a positive or negative, tell me if it's strong or weak. So you're going to make the graph. You can just draw it on your paper. Make the graph. Tell me if it's positive, negative, or no correlation. If it's positive or negative, tell me if it's strong or weak. Now there's also a handout that I need you guys to do tonight. It's this guy right here. It's connected on the web page. If you go to my web page, it's under Forms and Documents. It's what is it called? Scatter plot handout, I believe. I'm not 100% positive. If you go to the class calendar, it's on the day for the class calendar. It's a link on the day. It's a document on the day. Okay.